What's going on, guys? Your boy Raiden Amazing, and we are back with another video. In today's video, guys, we're going to be doing the complete Raiden Shogun guide, so you guys know everything you need to know about this character, as she will be rerunning later in the 5.0 update. And I wanted to make this video a little bit before the banner actually does release, so that you guys know exactly how to build her and have all the best weapons, all the best artifacts. You know, we'll talk everything with the character pretty much. So if you guys enjoy videos like this, definitely make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. I appreciate all the support on the channel. And with that out of the way, let's talk about her best stuff, and we'll start with her weapons. Alright guys, so for best weapons for Raiden Shogun, there is a bunch that you can actually use that are really good for her. The main one obviously being the Engulfing Lightning, being her signature weapon. Engulfing Lightning is going to have a ER main stat and then base attack at 608 at level 90. And then also it's actually going to increase your attack by 28% of your energy recharge over the base 100%. And you can gain a maximum bonus of 80% of your attack, and you gain 30% energy recharge for 12 seconds after using an elemental burst. This is a very strong polearm, as it's pretty much benefiting from the fact that the higher ER you have, the more attack you're actually going to be getting, right? And then also the fact that with your ER, obviously for Raiden herself, she does get a benefit in the sense that she's getting more electro damage bonus, and that also in turn with the attack is going to be a nice way to increase her damage. Now another weapon you guys can definitely use that, you know, if you have as a 5-star, would be Staff of Homa. Now Staff of Homa is more of like kind of like a stat stick type weapon. It's still really good in the game, and obviously, you know, with the effect that it has of being 66% critical damage, and then you also gain an attack buff based on your HP. Obviously all those things are really good. The only problem with it is that half the passive you're not actually getting with Staff of Homa, because you need to be less than 50% maximum HP to be able to you know, benefit from that. But I think this weapon is a really good stat stick for this Raiden Shogun, and will definitely help you build a better, you know, crit rate crit damage ratio based on just having more critical damage on your actual Raiden herself. Staff of Scarlet Sands, I mean, that's a really good one as well if you're running like a Hyper Bloom Raiden. You could also run obviously Primordial Jade Wing Spear in terms of the 5-stars. And then if we actually move over to the 4-stars here, guys, the best one I'm going to recommend for you guys is the Catch. I mean, this one is completely free to play. You can actually grind this one from doing the fishing event in Inazuma, and you'll be able to get this weapon. And exactly for what it does, it increases your elemental burst damage by 32% and elemental burst crit rate by 12% at the R5, and that is very easily obtainable for a lot of you guys. And so I actually would recommend this weapon if you do not run Engulfing Lightning or any of the other 5-star options that were available. It really depends on kind of the team comp and where you're running her, but the Catch is just an absurd weapon, man, and something I definitely recommend you guys invest in if you haven't already. And even if you don't use it on a character like Raiden Shogun, you can still easily slap it on a character like Shang Ling, and it's going to be a very nice stat stick for the extra, you know, elemental burst damage and crit rate for an emblem set anyway. Alright guys, so that's generally Raiden Shogun's best weapons right there, including the 5-stars and the 4-stars. I think if you had to pick one of them, I would definitely go with Engulfing Lightning, as obviously it's going to be your signature. And if you can't get Engulfing Lightning, guys, then the Catch is going to be your best recommendation from that. Obviously you do have a bunch of 5-star ones, and if you have a 5-star one, I would probably take that one over, you know, maybe the Catch in most circumstances. But it really depends on, you know, where your build's kind of at, and whether or not, you know, the crit damage from, you know, like a Staff of Homa or a Primordial Jade Wing Spear can actually help you get more attack or just damage on your set anyway. Alright guys, so that's going to cover her weapons right there. Let's actually move over to artifacts, and we'll talk artifacts and the best sets you want to be running on Raiden Shogun. Now in terms of the best artifact set for this character, guys, it's gotta be Emblem of Severed Fate. For you guys that don't know what it does, it's going to be on the 2-piece, provide 20% energy recharge. On the 4-star, it's actually going to increase elemental burst damage by 25% of your energy recharge, and a maximum of 75% bonus damage can be obtained in this way. Now the reason why this artifact set is Raiden Shogun's best set is because a lot of the things in her kit are based around getting her ultimate. You know, Raiden Shogun is a character that has really high scaling energy recharge for increasing her elemental damage or electro damage bonus specifically, and also the fact that when you do gain higher ER, you're actually going to be in turn cycling ultimates a lot easier with this character for your entire team, as she can act as a battery. And having all that ER with your ultimate and doing all the damage that she can do, you know, it's pretty synergistic, right? You're getting more damage for just having higher ER. And in terms of the actual artifact stats that you guys are looking for, honestly, man, from my experience using a Raiden Shogun, the best thing you guys can go for is around 200 plus ER, right? So that's going to be kind of your range that you want to be at. So if we actually look at my Raiden Shogun here, I have 264 ER on mine. But generally speaking, you want to be above around the 200 plus range I would say if you have anything above like 200 plus, you're in a really good ballpark. And then you want definitely a really good crit rate, crit damage ratio, obviously with a 1-to-2 ratio. So you're obviously looking at 50-100, 60-120, and then 70-140. And if you can get higher than that, guys, which obviously my Raiden is really insane, you can definitely get higher and go for that as well. But I definitely would prioritize going with the crit rate, crit damage for the substats, and trying to kind of get around 200 plus ER on Raiden Shogun. Now in terms of the main stats here, guys, for the artifacts that you're running, obviously your feather and your flower are going to be the standard base ones. But in terms of her circlet here, crit rate or crit damage, depending on the ratio and depending on your weapon you're running. If you're running like a a Jade Wing Spear, you could probably run like a crit damage circlet. Maybe you can get away with that. Or if you have really good substats on it as well. But I usually generally recommend a crit rate circlet, just because of the fact that you want your Raiden Shogun to have a ton of crit rate, just being able to hit the ultimate and actually landing it. Again, if you have a weapon that can suffice, if you run like the catch, or if you run Primordial Jade Wing Spear, you can kind of make up for that. But yeah, I mean, those are just kind of options in terms of being able to do that. So obviously, crit rate is going to be really good, and then you want a lot of crit damage, and you're looking for in terms of the priorities for the substats, you definitely want to get ER, attack percent, obviously the crit rate, crit damage being before those two, and then yeah, that would pretty much make up the subs that you actually are looking for. So yeah, guys, the crit rate circlet is going to be the way I like to go, but if you can make do with a crit damage one and have a lot of crit rate on it, then obviously that's going to be really good too. In terms of the goblet though, guys, I actually would recommend an electro damage goblet. Now a lot of people have the the disagreement on whether or not attack percent is better than electro damage, and it really depends on kind of the team comp you're running and kind of your setup. But generally speaking, go with whatever one has your best substats. And if you are going to be running an attack percent goblet, then you definitely want to make sure that your sands is actually an ER sands. As you guys can see, I actually have a ER sands and I actually have an electro damage goblet, and the reason why I'm actually able to run this and be successful is because I am actually running engulfing lightning. If you're not running engulfing lightning, then you definitely want to prioritize running if you're running an attack goblet, then you would have to run kind of the the ER sands as well. Or even an attack percent sands. But I generally recommend going with an ER sands, just so you can make that energy recharge threshold, and you're also just providing more energy recharge for obviously the burst damage. And then yeah, I mean, obviously that's going to be a big benefit too. Then obviously for the substats for this, guys, crit rate, crit damage, attack percent, ER, right? If you're running ER on the top, then attack percent is the sub, and then whatever else you can get, maybe some EM if you want. But generally speaking, crit rate, crit damage is the way to go. In terms of the goblet, guys, I'm definitely going to recommend on the main stat though electro damage bonus, but it obviously depends on whether or not you have a higher CV on a attack percent goblet versus an electro damage goblet, and also whether or not it's like onset or offset, because you could obviously make it work if you have an attack percent one. But if you are running an attack percent goblet, definitely you are looking for ER on your substats, crit rate, crit damage, attack percent. If you're running an electro damage goblet, you're looking for attack percent, you're looking for ER, crit rate, crit damage, and yeah, you'll be pretty good with that. Alrighty, guys, so that's gonna cover pretty much the artifacts for Raiden Shogun. There really isn't like another set you could recommend for this character. I guess if you were running like a hyper bloom setup, you could really go with like Flowers of Paradise Lost, or you could even go with like the Deepwood set. It's kind of up to you in that sense, but honestly I wouldn't really delve into those sets, guys. I would really just stay with Emblem of Sever Fate, since it's gonna be her general use case set, and it's just gonna be better in general for across all your use with this character. Unless you're trying to min-max and run more of like a hyper bloom setup, then obviously Flowers of Paradise Lost or things like that would be a little bit better. Alright, guys, now moving on to our constellations here for the C1, the Chakra Desiderata will gather resolve even faster, so you're pretty much going to be able to get your resolve a lot quicker. When electro characters use their elemental burst, the resolve gained is increased by 80%, and when the character of other elemental types use their elemental burst, the resolve gained is actually increased by 20%. Now this C1 isn't like that insane. It's definitely a nice buff to be able to get your resolve stacks a lot faster, and we're going to go into Raiden Shogun's talents, and we'll kind of discuss that. But yeah, no, it's kind of just a quality of life constellation, really. Just getting your ultimate to do a little bit more damage with the resolve stacks being built a lot quicker. That's obviously really good. Where Raiden Shogun actually does level up, guys, is the C2. Now this is a very insane one that I'm actually going to be going for when the summoning banner is available. But as you guys can see right here, Steel Breaker while using the ultimate pretty much, so the Musou no Hidotachi, and in the Musou Ishin state applied by the secret art Musou Shinsetsu, the Raiden Shogun's attack ignores 60% of the enemy's defense. So pretty much what that's pretty much getting at, guys, is the ultimate is going to ignore 60% of the enemy's defense, which there's not a lot of things in Genshin Impact that, you know, res shred defense, and that is obviously a very strong effect because you have that on top of all the electro damage bonus she's getting and all the attack percent she's getting from engulfing lightning. You're going to be dealing an absurd amount of damage. Now moving on from that, guys, the C3 is actually going to increase her ultimate level talent by 3, which is in turn another ultimate buff as well. And then the C4 right here is going to be when in the Musou Ishin state applied by the secret art Musou Shinsetsu. All nearby party members, excluding Raiden Shogun, will gain a 30% attack bonus buff. So that's kind of a supportive effect that you can get for the entire team if you do go for a C4. Now for the C5 right here, it's going to increase the E level. So the Baleful Omen, it's going to go level up by 3 talent levels. So it's going to level up her E talent by 3, guys, for the Transcendent Baleful Omen. So that's obviously going to be the Constellation 5. And then moving on to Constellation 6, while in the Musou Ishin state applied by the secret art Musou Shinsetsu attacks. The attacks by Raiden Shogun that are considered part of her elemental burst will decrease all nearby party members, not including Raiden Shogun herself, elemental burst cooldown by 1 second when they hit opponents, and this effect can be triggered once every 1 second and can trigger a total of 5 times during the Musou Ishin's duration, which is a way to make other characters get their ult a lot quicker in the elemental burst cooldown department, which is obviously a very strong effect too. Now in terms of the constellations and which ones I actually do recommend going for, guys, I would probably recommend going for C2 and probably stopping at that. And the main reason why is because if you would go for a C2 on this character, that's where you really get the, you know, the highest ceiling in terms of the damage you can get. At least on her ultimate, if that's what you're looking for. If you're looking for more of a supportive Raiden Shogun and you want to get all the other buffs as well, then obviously getting the 30% attack buff on her Constellation 4 for the team, or even getting the burst cooldown for your allies as well on her C6, if you can afford the, you know, to spend for that, is going to be really good. But honestly, my recommendation is either C0 or go for C2. That's kind of where I'm going to be at in terms of the constellations for Raiden Shogun. Alright guys, now moving on to her talents here. We kind of talked about it in the constellations, but let's talk about her talents and we'll talk about exactly why these things are very important. And I've kind of mentioned a lot of things already in this video in terms of talking about, you know, her ER and, you know, having to get a ton of that to increase her damage. And we'll kind of talk about how that actually plays into her kit. So for her first passive talent right here, it's going to be more expended when it, ascending swords and polearms is decreased by 50%. So that's just something that you get inherently just by owning the character. So obviously, I mean, that's really good, you know, save less Mora. If you have this character, I guess you're able to do that. Now moving on to Enlightened One, for each 1% above the 100% energy recharge that Raiden Shogun possesses, grant her 0.6% greater energy restoration from her ultimate, and then 0.4% electro damage bonus. And I think this maxes out at the 300%, if I'm not mistaken. That might, oh no, the 300% is for her artifact set. The electro damage bonus can just keep going based on your ER. There's no like cap, I guess, right? So that's obviously really good. So the higher the ER, the more electro damage bonus you get for Raiden, and the more damage you're gonna get just in general from her, you know, electro abilities. Now moving on to Wishes Unnumbered. When nearby party members gain elemental orbs or particles, Chakra's Desperada gains 2 resolve stacks, and this effect can occur once every 3 seconds. So that's gonna pretty much add to her, you know, her damage on her resolve stacks, and that's gonna be obviously really good for her ultimate. Now moving on to her skills, guys, normal attack is just going to be your standard normal attack stuff with a polearm character. These are what the percents are going to be if you guys are trying to use this character at talent level 10. Now for her E right here, you guys can see in terms of the actual info for it, Raiden Shogun's going to unveil a shard of her Euthymia, dealing electro damage to nearby opponents and granting nearby party members the Eye of Stormy Judgment. And so what the Eye of Stormy Judgment actually does is when characters with this buff attack and deal damage to opponents, the Eye will unleash a coordinated attack, dealing AoE electro damage at the opponent's position, and that's going to obviously be very, very good because it's going to do a lot of damage. And characters who gain the Eye of Stormy Judgment as well will have their elemental burst damage increase based on the energy cost of the elemental burst during the Eye's duration. So you even do buff your teammates in terms of getting their stronger ultimates, and that's obviously going to be a very big buff for the character as well. Now the next thing about it, guys, is that the Eye can initiate one coordinated attack every 0.9 seconds per party, and coordinated attacks are generated by characters not controlled by you will deal 20% of the normal damage. So that's obviously another big bonus you get from that. And then you guys can see the effects on the E in terms of the actual effects you get at talent level 10. Now moving on finally to her ultimate here, guys. This is the really important thing that Raiden Shogun is based around, is going to be her Muso Shinsetsu, right? This is her ultimate, and this is where she's going to be able to provide a lot of stuff for the entire team. So gathering truths unnumbered and wishes uncounted, the Raiden Shogun unleashes the Musho no Hitotachi and deals AoE electro damage using Musho instant in combat for a certain duration afterward. The damage dealt by Musho no Hitotachi and Musho Ishin's attacks will be increased based on the number of chakra Desarada resolve stacks consumed when this skill is used. Now, Musho Instant, while in this state, the Raiden Shogun will now wield her Tachi in battle, and while her normal charged and plunging attacks will be infused with electro damage, which cannot be overridden, and when such attacks hit opponents, she will regenerate energy for all nearby party members. So whenever Raiden Shogun's using her ultimate and she does damage against the enemy, you're actually going to be restoring your allies, you know, or your teammates on the team, their energy, which is really, really strong. And energy can be restored in this way once every 1 second, and this effect can be triggered 5 times throughout the skill's duration. While in this state, Raiden Shogun's resistance to interruption is increased, and she is immune to electro-charged reaction damage. While Musho Isen is active, the Raiden Shogun's normal charge and plunging attack damage will also be considered elemental burst damage, which is why her artifact set with the Emblem of Sever Fate is actually saying that you get more elemental burst damage, right? So that's the kind of the idea on why that works that way. So that's kind of the idea on why Emblem of Sever Fate is the way it works, is that it gives you elemental damage for your burst, and that's exactly what Raiden Shogun is scaling off of, not necessarily just from infusing her normal charge and plunging, and that's where you base it off. It's not actually like that, and it's specifically based around her damage for her elemental burst damage, right? That's the buff that she's specifically getting. Now, I didn't really explain it here, guys, but the Chakra Desarada, when nearby party members, excluding Raiden Shogun, use their elemental burst, the Raiden Shogun will build up resolve stacks based on the energy cost of these elemental bursts, and the maximum number of resolve stacks is 60, and the resolve gained by Chakra Desarada will be cleared 300 seconds after the Raiden Shogun leaves the field. And you guys can see here, these are all the things that are going to be in the ultimate at the talent level 10 right here. You guys can see all the effects that she does have right there. So yeah, guys, that pretty much covers Raiden Shogun herself. Let's actually talk about now the best team comps that I would recommend for this character and what you actually want to be using for in terms of your teams. Alright guys, so the really nice thing about Raiden Shogun is that she has a lot of flexibility with teams that you can actually run for the character. Raiden Shogun, because she's a character that can provide a ton of, you know, ER for the entire team, being able to, you know, rush their ultimates is obviously going to be very, very strong, and, you know, getting everyone's elemental burst is really good. So you can have her run as a supportive role if you want, or you can run her on field for her damage in her Musho instant state, right? So you can definitely do that as well. Now, the team that I like the most after using this character as much as I have is the Chevreuse Bennett, Kudosara, and Raiden Shogun Hyper Raiden or Hyper Carry Raiden team. The way this team kind of works is you have Kudosara use her E, and her E is obviously going to be able to give you an electro damage buff and also an attack buff. And I think it is dependent on your constellations for her specifically, but she is pretty much the dedicated support for Raiden Shogun. And then Bennett's, obviously you guys know Bennett, he's going to be healing you in the circle. He's also going to provide the attack buff that he provides based on his base attack. And then Chevreuse right here is a, you know, kind of not really utilized character, but at the higher constellations for this character, Chevreuse, she's actually going to be buffing electro damage bonus and also pyro damage bonus for the team. And as you guys can see, we are running a specifically overload friendly team. So Chevreuse's passive in the way she works will actually work specifically for this hyper carry team if you're trying to run Raiden on field for her main damage. Another team comp you guys can do, man, is going to be like a Raiden national team. So obviously you can run this, but you would run Bennett, you would run Sing Show, Shou, and you would run also Xiangling. And this team right here can be a really nice team as well, because a lot of these characters have off-field damage like Xing Shou and Xiangling, where you can deal that extra damage off-field while Raiden Shogun's on-field, you know, charging their burst and doing the damage that she can. So these would be two examples of like on-field main DPS Raiden Shoguns, where you know, pretty much are doing all the damage with her specifically. And then obviously her, you know, Xing Shou and Xiangling off-field are going to be doing their, you know, sub DPS damage as well, while Bennett's buffing the team. Other roles that you can run Raiden Shogun in, guys, would be, you know, maybe like an as a supportive role. You know, if you run like Hyper Bloom, I know Raiden Shogun can be definitely run as a Hyper Bloom driver, or you can have her in the Hyper Bloom setting where you can run her, you know, just for E, right, just to be able to apply the electro damage. Other comps as well would be for like Eula. You know, if you run Eula, you can run Raiden Shogun as a character to apply Super Conduct, as she is a physical damage dealer. So obviously being able to apply both those things would definitely boost for the character. You know, obviously there's a ton of other teams, guys, you can run with this character. You can run alongside Ye Miko. You can do, you know, bro, guys, there's so many. Fischl, Kazuha, if you want a Kazuha buff, you can really swap, you know, Chevreuse out for the team that I showed. You can swap Chevreuse out for Kazuha, and that was the original Hyper Raiden team. But yeah, no, obviously there's so many teams you can run with this character that I can't even really list all the teams, guys. There's really so many that you can just kind of run, that this character is very flexible, man. And that's the really nice thing about this character is, you know, if you're going to be pulling for her, she's going to be really good across a lot of the game. So that pretty much covers Raiden Shogun right there, guys. I'll have some gameplay play here of when I actually ran her on my, you know, C1 Raiden on the hyper carry, you know, for the actual abyss that we had available. I'll actually show you guys exactly how she's able to play in that, and I'll have that clip play for the rest of the video. But that's going to be it for the video, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy, and this guide was actually helpful for you, and you learned something about Raiden Shogun you might not have known already. So that's going to be it, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one, man.